We know that this is just a first step to start a broader process, but if you could just put it into perspective for us, how important is the vote that's taking place today?
The vote is significant. This is the first test of the Senate's view of Saudi Arabia since the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. And it's going to be substantive in the sense of whether or not the United States is backing Saudi Arabia more in the future in its conflict in Yemen. But it's also going to be symbolic. The Senate wants to get on the record about what happened in Turkey to Jamal Khashoggi, and they haven't had an opportunity to since that killing. Well, now they do, and so we're going to hear a lot of language that's tough rhetoric, but getting the vote is going to really show where senators stand on these issues.
Why has the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi brought so much unease to senators? Why has it made them take a closer look at what was already a devastating war in Yemen?
Sometimes it's the very focused, practical examples that bring hard issues to the fore. And the war in Yemen is big, and sometimes it's hard to grasp for members of Congress. But the killing of an individual, one who was prominent here in Washington, and in such a brazen way, in violation of norms that all of us in the United States hold dear, that many around the world hold dear, and to do so in a manner where after it took place, there was a lying and a cover-up. It's just too much for senators, and it really brings together all the different strains of concern that the senators have about the direction of American policy in the Middle East, broadly speaking, and of the relationship with Saudi Arabia and the links that creates in terms of our positioning in the Middle East. So this gives a forum to senators to really focus and speak towards these concerns at a broad level that prior to this killing, they really couldn't exactly pinpoint in a very clear, visceral way.
Speaking of the way the U.S. is positioning itself in the Middle East, we heard today from Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. They made a very strong effort to convince senators of the need for the U.S. to continue its participation in the war in Yemen. They spoke about the relationship with Saudi Arabia being very much the cornerstone of U.S. policy in the Middle East right now, particularly in terms of Saudi being a bulwark against Iran. How would you describe what we heard from Pompeo and Mattis today? What were they trying to do in that briefing?
So I organized these types of briefings when I served at the State Department. I did so for the House of Representatives. And this briefing, this was meant to essentially scare the senators into feeling very concerned about taking any difficult action towards Saudi Arabia. The intent of this briefing was not just to convey information and provide a policy update, but to really put senators in a defensive position to make them feel very reluctant to do anything that could upset the current policy that the Trump administration has towards the region. And I'm not sure it's going to work. Oftentimes, we call it a Chicken Little type of briefing, where the argument is made that everything will fall apart if this one change is made, and this change being tough on Saudi Arabia. And that's done to intimidate senators. So we'll see if they're intimidated. We'll see if they back off. It doesn't sound like they will, in large part because the administration made a tactical error by not allowing Gina Haspel to attend. By withholding the CIA director, it now has given the high ground to the Senate to say this was not a legitimate briefing and to not be scared of the briefing as a result. So that was the approach of the administration, but they very well may have undermined their own approach.
Might the CIA assessment be properly and fully disclosed anytime soon?
So there will be a classified assessment that the committees doing oversight of the CIA will have access to in the Senate and the House. Will they make something unclassified? Not clear. Will senators talk about it anyways? Most likely, yes. The CIA can't avoid oversight, though, and Congress can't be avoided. Congress controls the budget. Congress has subpoena power. It really doesn't make sense to try to block the CIA from briefing the Congress, because Congress will get its briefing.
All right. Well, for now, thank you very much. Appreciate your thoughts and analysis. Joel Rubin joining us there, former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, the Saudi Crown Prince is in our